I want to talk about Addison's disease in the mountains. And pardon me being in the bathtub, but honestly, I'm in this recovery mode right now, healing from my latest journey, and it's all just ice packs, elevation, and Epsom salt baths. So this is kind of where I'm living right now, regardless. So I go backpacking every single year with Addison's disease, and I've had Addison's disease for 3 years now. And I have learned more this go around than any other time going backpacking or being active out in the woods, which I try to do as often as I possibly can. So I really want to share what I learned. And again, this is just my personal experience. This isn't fact or anything like that. These are observations that I made in the woods with my good friend who also noticed these patterns. And I really want to share them because I think they can help. They're definitely going to help me prepare for trips in the future with Addison's in the woods, and it might help others. Plus, it'd be really interesting to hear if anyone else noticed these things. So the primary thing I learned this go around was that elevation gain and Addison's disease, at least in my body, are not friends. I've climbed mountains before, climbed peaks, and not really noticed this problem. I don't know if it's because these are some of the highest peaks I've ever climbed and descended from, or if it's because I didn't do it so frequently. On this trip, we were climbing up and down, and I don't have it memorized off the top of my head, but we were doing at least climbing and climbing down from high elevation multiple times a day, and typically with a short turnaround time, so maybe like 1 or 2 miles to get up and down. So it was very abrupt. So I don't know if that was also the indicator or the instigator of the problem, but regardless, I just want to share. So the first and foremost unusual thing that I noticed for me is that I wasn't very thirsty and I wasn't very hungry. And anyone that knows me will think that's insane because I eat all day long. I eat all the time. I'm probably, in my typical life, I eat constantly, but when I'm normally backpacking, how I prepare is that I have a snack for every single hour of the day and have meal times as well. So I pack about 12 snacks a day plus 3 meals. And I didn't want any of it. It was so hard to eat. I wasn't hungry. My stomach felt terrible to the point where the girls that I with were like shoving food down my throat. They were like, you have to eat. And I did, but it made my stomach feel awful. So first and foremost, I wasn't hungry. That was weird for me. 2, I wasn't really thirsty. So normally when I go backpacking and everyone thinks I'm crazy, at least all the backpackers do, I typically carry 2 gallons of water with me. And that is because people with Addison's disease, we have dehydration scares and we have a hard time retaining water. So I like to be prepared. Plus when you're in the woods, you never know when water's gonna come or go. Of course, there's word on the trail or you can see on maps, and there's gut hooks, there's apps that tell you where water is, but people with medical problems, we like to be prepared. We don't like to get in a situation where we're gonna be in trouble. So I typically carry about 2 gallons of water. However, I wasn't drinking it. I wasn't thirsty, and that was also really weird for me because I, in real life, drink water all day long. And because of that, I have to pee all day long. And I don't know if that's an Addison's thing, a Vanessa thing, or the dehydration issues with Addison's disease. But in real life, I'm going, man, I go to the bathroom like at least 2 times an hour. And usually when I go backpacking, the same thing applies because I'm drinking so much. Wasn't the case. So I'm not eating, I'm not drinking as much as I should or would normally be doing. And it didn't really alarm me, but it was weird. I kept thinking like, this is not normal. And we'd get into camp at night and they would both be ravished and making these massive meals. And I literally cooked dinner one night and I couldn't even finish it. I thought I was gonna throw up. I gave it to my friend and she ate it all. So those were the small things that I didn't really feel like they affected me, but they were important to note. Elevation. Okay, I'll get back to the thing about coming off the mountain then after. So low cortisol, I don't know. Sometimes when I am low cortisol, I have a hard time breathing. My chest gets really tight and I feel like I want to expand, like my lungs won't expand all the way, and I get really anxious and really stressed out and really panicky. And usually I try to meditate or calm way down or throw my legs up the wall or stress dose if I need to. But we found as we climbed these mountains, with every elevation gain, within like 100-foot elevation gain, it would start happening and my chest would collapse. It was really hard to take deep breaths. My heart rate was going crazy, and so I had to stop, and I would put my trekking poles out in front of me and I would actually lean over them and try to take these deep breaths, and I just couldn't get them. And it was really uncomfortable and really dysregulating, and I had so little control of my breath that when I would drink water climbing, I wouldn't be able to breathe and drink. I mean, you can't breathe and drink at the same time, but I wouldn't be able to figure out the rhythm. My breath was so irregular that when I would drink and come back out, I would be gasping, almost like I was choking for air. And my partner that I was with was so amazing and so patient. But once we got off the mountain, she was like, that scared the hell out of me. That was terrifying sounding. So we noticed that. And as soon as we would get to the top of a peak, we would rest for a while, hang out. But as soon as we'd start the descent, heart and lungs perfectly fine. No issues whatsoever. So I noticed in my personal body that altitude, no bueno, like so bad for Addison's, for my personal experience. I don't know if anyone else experiences that. If you do lots of peak climbings, please share. I would love to figure out the patterning. Again, we went up to about 6,000 foot elevation gain. We were gaining and losing anywhere between 1,500 multiple times a day. And then on the very last day, when we knew we had to get down, my knees were so excruciatingly painful. We actually discovered that on day 3, I hiked the mountain back down backwards, which I will say, I'm probably the only hiker that's hiked the PCT backwards. Don't recommend it, but it was an experience. And she was my eyes, and I would turn around and we would go, because I couldn't go down without being in excruciating pain, despite the medication, despite the steroids. It was brutal. And I would go backwards, she would be my eyes and guide me where to go. And we did that for day 3. Anyway, the last day, we found another trail, Surprise Creek Trail. We took off the PCT, and when we got off, we did like a 1,500 foot decrease of elevation in about 4 hours, which is very, very fast. And as soon as we got down, I was ravished and starving, and I felt insanely drunk. We got hitched into town, and as soon as we got into town, we found this little motel inn, got the last room, thank God. It's like 9 o'clock at night, and I went on like a hunger fanatic craze. I had 2 dinners, I was eating all of the bars, eating so much protein. I had like 3 meat bars, rice cakes, and I had like 2 gallons of water just sitting there. And I felt totally crazy drunk, and both her and I realized, we were like, oh my God, it's like my body was starved and dehydrated this whole week, which it kind of was. I mean, they were forcing food and water down my throat, but I didn't want any of it. And I think it was the elevation. And as soon as we were down and away from the altitude, my body was like back to normal and like, feed me. And I felt crazy. It took like 2 days to tame and pacify the hunger, but it was really, really severe and really strong. And now I feel pretty normalized. My stomach is an absolute wreck from the pain medicine that I was on, because I was taking like 10 Aleve, 6 Tylenol, and stress dosing about 45 milligrams for my normal steroid dose. So my stomach is a mess. I'm officially off pain meds, day 2, still weaning down steroids, but my stomach's destroyed from all that pain medicine, which I don't normally take. So I'm trying to baby it and take care of it. And obviously my knees they're slow and steady, getting better, but it is all a resting and waiting game. But it was interesting. So now when I prepare moving forward, I think as much as I want to hike all of the PCT, and I think there's still so much of it that I can hike, I don't know if elevation gain or loss, rapid elevation gain or loss is in my best interest, and or something that I really want to do anymore. So it's making me reframe exactly what it is that I want to do. And, you know, there's so much in this world to explore that's not so high up that I can still see and hang out on and be amazed by. So I might just tweak how I go about it to still be able to explore. But again, this is just my personal experience, but I thought it was really, really interesting to notice the patterning with the elevation gain. And again, I'm just so curious if anyone else has experienced that and if we can share it and can compare. And I don't know, what hacks are you doing to make it happen? Because when I tried to force myself to eat or drink water, it just made me unbelievably ill, in addition to being in pain. So yeah, that was what I learned up in the mountains on a PCT in Washington. Totally an adventure, totally beautiful, absolutely wonderful. Highs and lows, as it always is with bodies, and we just learn as we go. But as always, thank you guys so much for being here. Light and love and all the spoons, and I hope you have a wonderful day.